Oh, hey guys, how's it going? What's that? Oh, that's just another Subaru motor, you know, like three is an odd number, so I figured four's probably fine, right? No? Why do I have 4 Subaru motors? You know, I don't have a problem, you're the one with the problem. Come on. Welcome to the project, everyone. So, yeah, I had to get another motor, but there's a reason behind it. It's really useful, but yes, we have yet another motor. I will say, to make one good motor, this is like the first time I've had to use 4 bad motors to make one good motor. Typically, I only have the one and I can rebuild it, but I guess, you know, maybe is this a trend with Subaru? I don't know. Anyways, before I start talking on why exactly we have this, let's get it unloaded and on the engine stand, which means we gotta take that block off. So, all right, let's get to it. I don't think I can even fit this past the Crosstrek right here. I don't know how I'm gonna get this to the other side. It's too wide. The short block made it through just fine, but this long block, yeah, we're gonna have to move things around. So we are sitting here with another FB25 motor. A little bit of a long story, but not too bad. I found a local shop that are super experts, and they were honestly great. Like, my first experience with them, I just went in and was like, look, I've got these heads. They need new valve guides for sure. I don't know what other machining work they need. Do you guys do the machining work? And all of that. And I started us talking together. After talking to him for a bit, those heads, I mean, they're probably going to be about $1,000 worth of machine work into there. And so it's almost not even worth it to use those, but they were a Subaru shop. They had a ton of cores sitting around. And so they like talked with one another and tried to figure out if they had some heads that might be usable. And this is what came of it. They basically let me take this home so I can take the heads off, and then we'll put those heads on. Even though they're freshly machined and all of that, they're so clean, but I hate to see them go. But essentially, these heads should be good and we can use these heads. Those ones we put back on and give them back so they have their core. So it should be a really cheap way that we actually have usable heads to finally put on our short block. But it means, yet again, we have a 4th motor, if you count the short block motor. We have yet another motor that we kind of get to do a teardown on and talk about. I don't know if this is from a Forester or what. So far, most of the stuff looks like it's on there. I will say, if they were correct on remembering what this motor was, they said that it was eating a bunch of oil and it had it had a misfire. So we do still need to figure out, are these heads good? But essentially we just need to pull them off. They're really nice about a bunch of things. Giving this motor back, they said it literally just needs to hold itself together. Doesn't matter if there's missing bolts or anything. You know, this is a little bit of a throwaway motor. Hopefully the heads are good, but we need to start digging into it. But not tonight, because it's late. To a day I have more time. We definitely have a bit more time today. Again, the main thing of this is to get the heads off, see if they're good, and then put the other stuff all back together. So I'm just gonna like, not necessarily take everything apart like I have before, but just kind of like get it all off from there so we can get the heads off, and then we're gonna be putting it all back together. So with that, you know, stuff like these plugs and whatnot, I'm just gonna unplug them and get them into the center here, because that's all we really care about. Let's start getting into it. You know, that sounds fun. This motor is so dirty. It's honestly a little off-putting to me. I mean, I sound like a freaking wussy saying that, but like, man, it's just so much nicer if you're working on clean stuff. It's just a fact. we have got the heads off, and they're over here. We got the pile of everything, and I just want to show a few things of note on this motor. Cylinder bores, they look pretty decent. Corrosion on the pistons, or like carbon buildup, it's not too bad, honestly. The top of the motor was just so filthy. Here's the other pistons. Yeah, that's not too bad. So, now we come to the heads, the important part. So again, this motor said a misfire and was eating oil, and they just like swapped out. They put in, I think they found like a cheap motor to throw in, and then they just pulled this out to use as a core. So now here we have our heads. These heads are all labeled BE25 rather than AP25. So again, AP25, AP20, and these are BE25. I don't know if that's necessarily anything to be too concerned about. Over here it says M914. On those it was like M10 and then 19. Again, I'm not sure if that's year and month, but could be wrong. So this is where we get interesting. It seems like there's a bit of sludge, but I think these will clean up pretty well. So the interesting part is this guy right there. You see that? So I think I know why this was misfiring and had some issues, because like, I mean, that is totally gone. So that's where we're at a bit of a crossroads here. I've done all the work to pull these off. I need to get the motor back together, like just with heads, just whatever, because they're going to use that as a core. So we do need to put everything back in there. We just need to basically take the best of what we have and the worst of what we have, put on there. So with this, I honestly think these heads are older, and I mean, with that falling apart, I'm not sure if I trust these valves necessarily. I mean, if one fell apart, wouldn't the other ones fall apart? But also the springs. I do know, you know, for a bit there, Subaru had spring issues. I tend to trust those springs a little bit better. So if we're gonna keep these heads, what we kind of need to do is actually pull off all the springs and retainers, put those springs and retainers on here, these springs and retainers on there with all the bent valves, put those heads onto there, and button that back up so we have all that together. And as far as these cam carriers, I think I am gonna trust these cam carriers better. I mean, they're cleaner. I think the wear on the cams is a bit less. So yeah, I trust these cams a bit more, even if we use those. I mean, we might even use the AP20 cams. We'll see. But so yeah, so these are gonna go back on. They definitely been used more. I guess this is also something of note. The intake runners on these guys, they're actually pretty clean. They're not looking too shabby. And then also something of interest is that these guys, I mean, yeah, they feel like they're metal, but they like don't look the same. Uniformly black, while these ones are definitely not. Somewhere in here I have the ones for the AP20, or sorry, the FB20. Yeah, see, these guys are a little bit different, these tumble generators. Cause see, there's that same side, and if we flip them over, notice these have these little wings. I'm not sure which ones to use. I do need to put some back in. So again, we'll grab the worst of what we have and throw it back into this motor so they can use it as a core. All right, valve spring tool. So again, what we're gonna do, pull off these valve springs and retainers and then use them to put together the AP20 heads, because we're gonna be putting those on. Also, I will say, even though this valve is broken and some of the corrosion or the carbon buildup is a little crazy, especially on that side. Like, I think it's pieces of the valve stuck in. Anyways, even though that's a little crazy, I think these heads are still usable. The manual mentions lapping, or, you know, like you need to lap your valves. And so I think if we get new valves or we use the old valves, we're gonna lap everything in. And so even that part of the valve seat, hopefully we can kind of lap it out and make it good enough. But anyways, these are still better than our other ones. So at the very end of the day, I'd rather have these than have those nice clean ones. These should clean up pretty well. Man, okay. Also, if you're a Subaru shop, bench space must be at like a huge premium, because holy crap. I mean, granted, I do have like 3 motors pulled apart here, but like, they just take up so much space. Hopefully by the end of the day, we'll have a little bit more bench space. We'll have that motor ready to go back. Yeah, let's get to this. hopefully this is the last night for this video. The last main thing we need to do is put on the timing chains, which again, we made sure the pistons are kind of like in the center. And then we don't have to worry about the timing nearly as much, and I probably won't because of all the bent valves. Even if I got the timing right, the motor probably won't turn over because I put the valves back in. So, but before we do that, I do want to pull off one of these cam timing adjustment things, because I'm worried about like messing it up, and since we have a motor that we don't care about those ones, it's the perfect time to take it apart and try it out. Here's my 5-minute analysis on how this works. So we have oil that comes up through the bottom. I'm pretty sure through this port. I don't think through that port. It comes up down into here and through, oh, there's the valve. It comes up through here and through the side and into the center, which then that's where the actuator will push on this and start to divert the oil pressure into other areas, which we have two main areas. But first there's this pin right here, and it's spring loaded to be pushing in, so that way it'll actually lock the cam with the gear. But if that pin is pushed up like that, yeah, so if you fill up this chasm right here, it'll push that pin up against this spring and thus unlocking the gear from the cam. Now that it's unlocked, you can either you can fill up on either side of these wipers. You notice this one isn't used for the oil pressure because there's no seal here, but these ones have spring-loaded wipers against that sidewall. So right here with like 0 timing, you can fill it into these 2 small parts, which then will push it up like such. So that's with, you know, full timing advance, and then when you want, you can fill up the other side and go back. And then there's this piece, which are valves on here, and yeah, that's basically how it works. So glad I pulled it apart. We get to see kind of how it works. And now the main thing I needed for this was I needed to make sure I knew where the oil came in and where the oil went. If I look on here, I can see these are like where the wipers were, and then this is where that spring-loaded bit went. So we can get this all back together, pop this back on there, and continue on. Now we know how the actuator works for the cam timing. I will also say this one says INT, which I'm pretty sure is intake. So if we take apart the one if we take apart the one we actually want to use, it'll probably say EXT or EXH? I don't know. It'll probably say something. Before I put this back on, there's a little slot for a pin right here, which means this hole actually dumps into this little slot, which then just dumps it out into the engine case. And so that holds the exhaust, which means this one over here is probably where the oil comes in, which means the oil probably comes in like around here and around this centerpiece. So nifty difty, nice and thrifty. In case this is helpful to someone out there, I started looking at the injectors just to see, you know, if there was any, if I wanted to keep the ones that came on this motor. They look really crusty. And I kept looking here. If you see right there, it says Denso CH4GR. and I couldn't find anything for that. On the back side, there is another little code on there that starts with 181022805. And after looking at all three of them, they all have different identification here, but on the back they do all start with 1810, and then the 2.5 liters start with a 1820. So I think the 2.5 liter ones do have probably higher flow rate, and I think this last number might be maybe with date of manufacturer. We have a 2013, so these would be in 05. I don't know, they seem kind of old for that, but no idea. So if you want to know, or if you ever wondered, I think the injectors are slightly higher on the 2.5 liter, which makes sense. 1820 versus 1810, but we're still going to put the crusty ones on here, and then we can have the 1810s if we need. So I took this off. I'm probably just gonna go and be like, do you need this for the core? And if not, then how much would you charge for this? Because this would be kind of nice if I do need like an extra plug. I mean, some of these seemed a little ratchet, but it also could serve as like a good reference. So I might see, and if they want it back or they want too much money, then I can just put one bolt and now it's hung back on there. Well, we got to get this motor back to where it came from. The shot from back here is honestly best because you can see, there we are, there's the new heads. You can see how clean they are versus the really old, or the really gross and grimy other parts. So there we go. We have the heads in there, not all the bolts. But you know, it's all together and it's holding together, so that's what they wanted. All right, time to get this thing back in the truck and back home and see how much they owe me, but you guys are kind of in the way. So let's get you out of here. Make a little bit more space in the garage. We are back from the Subaru mechanic, I guess you'd say. It's just a local mechanic shop, Subaru specialist. And here's the valve. You guys see that? Yeah, that thing is super melted. I showed it to them and they're like, wow, that thing's really burnt. Like, they melted off. It didn't like break into pieces. So that explains why like the pistons still looked pretty good and the heads look good as well. So now we have our actually rebuildable heads here, which is good. And we have all the parts for the FB25. We got all the parts for the FB20. I think we are ready. I was also looking at my heads here, and right here, you guys see that? There's like a scratch, not on like the actual journal surface or on the nice machine surface, but on the shaft itself. There's like some scraping that happened there. I don't know if that, I think that's fine on that one. We'll have to deal with it. With that, I think that'll end it for this video. We've done a lot of progress and we finally have heads that are actually rebuildable, actually usable. So that pretty much marks all like the physical parts, like how do I say this, like all the main parts we need to actually start building our FB25. And in talking with the shop and everything, if I had to do this again, honestly, the way, if any of you guys do this, the way to do it is to actually just buy a cheap, low mile, maybe imported motor, an FB25. The shop, I was talking to them and they were like, ooh, could you return your short block? Because I could get you like a whole motor for like 1,800 bucks. I mean, the prices will probably vary for that, but like 1,800 bucks? Come on, it's a steal of a deal. I mean, I'm already down this hole, so we're gonna see it through. You know, we're gonna build the motor ourselves, see how it goes, and you know, we can kind of cherry pick maybe some little upgrades for it. So I'm excited for that. But like 1,800 bucks, swap it in. Like if you're gonna do FB25 swap, that's probably the way to go for that. So just something to keep in mind. Oh, one last thing too. This shop, they were super nice. This is the FB25 harness. It was on the motor that they let me borrow so I could swap the heads. And I pulled this off and I was like, you know, for the right price, this would actually be kind of nice to have. It's kind of gross and some of the wires are pulled out, but like at least I could use this as a reference for the FB20 when we use the FB20 harness. If something's not matching up, then I have the FB25 harness to like verify that all the plugs are the same, that the wiring works like it should. And so I was like, hey, how much do you want for this? And they're a little confused because they're like, oh, well, we pull the harness off of the motors, like not sure why we left it on there, but you can just have it, which I was like ecstatic. I was like, oh my goodness. They just gave me the harness, you know, because they're not going to use it. It was really nice of them. So we have the harness. That could be really important if we need to use it. So this shop, honestly, I think I might have said this already. I was really impressed because I just came in, like I was in my work polo and I came in and they treated me like I actually knew what I was doing. And actually talked to me and we were able to stroll around and just look like they treated me so nice. And then I haven't told them that I have a YouTube channel. I haven't told them that I'm like, you know, documenting this motor swap or anything. They just thought like, that's a really cool idea. They're like, Crosstrek with an FB25, like that's pretty sweet. It's just a good experience with the shop. Because again, when I brought back the motor today, you know, we sat there and chatted a bit, you know, just kind of going back and forth like, oh, you know, blah, blah, blah on this Subaru motor, this and that, you know. And it was nice because he was just like kind of telling me different information that he knows. And it's kind of useful for me to know. And I asked him a couple questions. You know, he even gave like brand suggestions for parts. We got the motor out of my truck. We got it on the ground and everything. And then they're like, all right, have a nice day. And I was like, okay, but like, how much do I owe you? And they're like, don't worry about it. This is just gonna go on a pallet until it gets turned in as a core. So like, you know, no harm, no foul. And I was like, okay, but seriously, you guys have helped me a lot. Like you've spent time to help me like load the motor and all of that. Like, how much do I owe you? And they're like, seriously, don't pay us. And I was like, I felt bad, but like they were so nice to me. And so I was like, okay, well, if I need to order parts, like, can I order them through you? And they're like, sure, but like our prices aren't going to be any lower than, like, we might not have the lowest prices. We can't guarantee we have like good prices. Man, I just, that response being so genuine and so honest, it's like, look, like, yeah, we can get you parts, but like, we're not going to be the lowest. Like, we're going to get, you know, we're not superhuman. We're not going to take a loss. Like, but if you want to order through us, that's great. So anyways, between the wiring harness and the motor, and now we actually have good heads. I mean, they're excited for the build. They were like a really nice shop, and I'm just really grateful that they were like so nice. And I love supporting local shops. But yeah, so that's the end of the video. We finally have heads. The videos to come on the Crosstrek are going to be actually putting it together, actually doing the fun stuff. So glad you guys have followed along on this project. I hope you guys hit the subscribe button so you can see the FB25 Crosstrek going at it. Also, I am curious if you've seen anyone else do it. I'd love to see kind of what other people have done and what their experience is. So far, I haven't seen a lot of other people do it. A lot of people have talked about it, but like some people say they've just done it. I don't know. We'll see. That'll do it for this project. Subscribe. We'll see you on the next one. Be awesome. Have a great day. We'll see ya. Bye.